what happens when people with Parkinson's disease use storytelling to share their experiences? Can telling their own stories foster connection, confidence, and hope? In today's episode, we explore how the simple act of storytelling can have a powerful impact. We'll take you inside a unique storytelling program, Telling Tales of Parkinson's, that became part of the Parkinson's Disease and Movement Disorders program at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. The program is led by Tekki, founder and artistic director of Tellin' Tales Theater, who helps participants use personal stories to share experiences and build community. You'll also hear from Marty Maibuecher, a participant who took part in the first Parkinson's storytelling group, and Eric Espinoza, the program coordinator who leads the Parkinson's support groups and programs at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about your role and the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab's Parkinson's disease and movement disorders program and how storytelling became part of those programs?
Yeah, of course. So I'm the program and outreach coordinator for the Parkinson's disease and movement disorders program at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, or PDMD to keep it short. And most of what I do is creating community programs as well as support groups for people with Parkinson's disease, as well as care partners. Our PDMD program mostly focuses on providing comprehensive, research-driven, and holistic care for individuals with Parkinson's disease at all stages of Parkinson's, and other related movement disorders. So we decided to develop and implement a storytelling program for people with Parkinson's as well as care partners to provide psychosocial support. And one of the things that we noticed when we conducted an environmental scan is that there aren't many uh, psychosocial support programs for people with Parkinson's or care partners. And that was one of the things that we decided to focus on to bridge that gap. And the opportunity to do so presented itself naturally. We had somebody come up who was related or affiliated to Telling Tales Theater that put the idea out there to potentially partner with them or work with them to be able to share stories. And that's how it came about.
Techie, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background in theater and a little bit about Talent Tales Theater?
Sure. Telling Tales is a 30-year-old theater program, and our mission is to shatter the barriers between the disabled and non-disabled worlds through personal story. We completely are into personal story and bringing out the stories of all peoples, especially people with disabilities. I found that there were not enough programs out there or theater experiences for people with disabilities. So some friends and I decided we were going to form this theater. And it has really taken off, and it has involved adults and middle school students. We have not taught or had little kids in our workshops, but I think that would be awfully fun. When this came about, when this Parkinson's storytelling program came about, I was so excited because that would be a new group for us to work with. And we noticed in our all of our work that our shows really build community because when people share their stories, there's an instant connection. And the Parkinson's program is no exception. It's actually been wonderful. My background is I was a theater kid in high school and just kept taking different workshops here in Chicago before we formed the theater. And also, I was in the corporate world as well. So, theater was my sideline. And I'm so excited because right now I'm able to do it full time.
Can you talk a little bit about like the structure of the workshop? How does it unfold within the Shirley Ryan Parkinson Support Program?
Okay, what's great is we'll have our participants, and we're on Zoom, so people don't have to travel, which is really nice. And what I do is I just warm the people up at first by showing them some photos and saying, "Hey, how do you relate to this photo? Can you tell me a little story about what that brings up for you?"
And is the photo a photo of the person or?
No, it's usually just a random photo. Like I'll
Okay.
have
So
an
like a
air,
warm-up exercise.
yeah, and it would be like an airplane or a doctor's office or a map or some last time I had a junk drawer. It was just random stuff. But a lot of times people really relate to these photos. So that gets them started. That gets them laughing too. And then I also use some prompts. Like, if you could, what would you say to Parkinson's? And we've had a couple people who've done that, which have been terrific. And so what I tell them is that you are all midwives of each other's stories. You are able to help birth these stories. And then the community is really formed. People talk to each other. They figure out, they say, well, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I think it needs to be a little bit funnier. We need some humor in there because it is a funny story. Or, I really relate to that. So we do a lot of talking and exchanging ideas. And then what we do is we work on refining the stories, talking about, let's get some details in there. What's the conflict? We talk about things like that. And one thing that I love doing is turning them into scenes, making them like theater. So somebody could be talking to their doctor, somebody could be talking to a bartender, somebody could be doing a TED talk, even. I mean, it's just people come up with the best ideas. And what I've noticed is a lot of people stay in touch. So there's some community going on after the workshops.
And with the workshops, are people, it's like a multi-week workshop, and are people, is the goal to tell a story about just anything you want or a story related in some way, shape, or form to Parkinson's? And I understand there's also, and we'll talk about this later with Marty, but just is that the goal, is to discuss the Parkinson's disease or not really?
Yeah, for me, that is the goal. I tell people they could, tell a story about anything, but then it always ends up relating to Parkinson's.
Okay. Marty, you're a participant in this, or you have been. I think we need to hear from you about what that was like. Can you kind of introduce yourself a little bit more and talk about your relationship to the Telling Tales program?
Sure. My name is Marty Maibuecher. I am 66 years old. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago. Proudly to say I'm a Sox fan, not a Cubs fan. And I was diagnosed with Parkinson's 13 years ago. And as we know, Parkinson's is progressive disease. And as my symptoms progressed, Sharon, I started to suffer from freezing of gait. And I searched high and low to find a therapist who did research and also applied clinical practices to that symptom. And I found Miriam Rafferty, who's the neurologic physical therapist at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. And through her, I was eventually, I had seen her for a couple years on and off. And then I was direct, I think that Eric got my name, maybe from Miriam, on this new program that was kicking off called Telling Tales. So that's how the initial contact was made. And I gotta tell you, the experience was unbelievable. It was something to be said about Tekki and her ability to help coach us along. And if I can back up just a bit, when Eric approached me about participating in this program, it so happened that Tekki was just finishing a project called Diversity, and it was about people telling stories, their own stories, about their life with disability. And my wife and I went to the theater, not knowing what to expect. We're a bit apprehensive about what to expect, and I was blown away. I mean, there was one particular gentleman that talked about his story that was very compelling and struck me quite close to the heart.
So then you became involved in the Telling Tales program at Shirley Ryan. What was your story about? And tell us a little bit about what it was like to go through the workshop.
Well, my story kind of I spin the clock back about 10 years. It was a touching story for me and hard for me to actually describe or perform in front of a group. But Tekki helped me walk through that with the workshops for sure. I had lost a friend, a dear friend, about well, actually it's been 13 years, and the year that I had waited a year to tell him that I had Parkinson's because he was my best friend, and I didn't want him to treat me any differently just because of Parkinson's. And I had woke up one morning and had the gumption to tell him that I was going to tell my story to him. I was going to share my diagnosis. And that day, ironically or suddenly, tragically, he died. So the day I was going to tell him the story, he tragically died. And I was able to put that with Tekki's assistance and a lot of role playing. We kind of tailored around the dear friendship that we had growing up on the north side of the city and an event that the day I was going to tell him, he so happened to have a massive heart attack. So Tekki helped us in the scenes that we talked about, and she had referenced how you kind of make a story. Is we kind of started with a 911 call. So in my mind, and Tekki, you'd have to speak to it, and Eric, you witnessed it. It was hard for me to tell, but it was a story that I had to tell, and that's part of what comes out of telling tales. It's almost like I use the word mind and body experience. You know, you're when you have Parkinson's or just about any disease, I mean, your body obviously feels the effect, but the psychological part that goes with it. And this venue, Tekki's the Telling Tales through Shirley Ryan Ability Lab allowed me to share that experience.
And what were some of the ways that Tekki helped you get that out? I'm assuming that you're not like a professional actor or stand-up comedian or a professional storyteller like, the Moth on NPR or anything like that. So what were the skills that Tekki brought to the program that helped someone, a regular person, just to tell the story effectively?
Relax, Marty. Please relax. Take deep breaths. lot of coaching. It's Sharon. It's very easy to talk about yourself. I mean, and I mean that. And there's an international speaking organization called Toastmasters, and one of the first things that they do in the first speech that you give if you join a affiliate is tell us a story about yourself. It's the very first story. This is the very first speech you have to give. So I was, I knew I could tell the story. I just needed to know that I could hold it all together. And I did get some help with Tekki. And by the way, we also do a lot of role play with other performers under the same flag, and we bounce suggestions off each other. Tekki would say, Marty, why don't you think about changing this? What is your message? So there's a lot of, in the workshops, Sharon, there's a lot of back and forth that helps you feel very comfortable when you get out there and tell your story in front of a group of people.
So that's how it culminates, right? You go through the workshop, it's a couple of weeks, you refine your story, and then it's presented live to an audience, right?
It is. It is. And that's a tough thing to do.
And who was in the audience? Where was this at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab or at the theater?
I said Shirley Ryan. It was in one of their conference rooms. There were probably the first one we had there. I think there were easily over 50 people and made up of relatives and friends, family of the performers.
And what was the reception? I mean, well, first tell me what was it like to tell the story, and then what was the reception when you were finished?
Well, it's to tell the story. It allowed me to, Parkinson's is a disease that's misconceptions and stigma surround, and it allowed me to, in a way, kind of release the misconceptions that surround it, and tell my story in a way that I think, and I know because I experienced it through the others that spoke and performed, is it allows you a sense of freedom that you've kind of let something that many people may have bottled up for years and have now allowed to articulate that out in a public forum to family and friends. And I will there were some tears in the eyes of many of the people sitting in the audience, and that came from multiple among all the stories.
Tekki, you're nodding your head. How do you feel as the midwife of these stories, seeing them unfold on stage and being in the audience?
I was so proud. I was like a mother, with that these were my kids, and I was so excited. And yeah, and I couldn't believe that had only been 6 weeks of work, and here we go. It was just amazing. And we had one doctor who's in charge of the entire program say that he wished other doctors could see something like this and really know exactly what people with Parkinson's go through.
And is there a show coming up or a workshop coming up for caretakers or caregivers of people who have Parkinson's? Eric, you're nodding your head. I'll let you answer this one.
Yes, there is. So we next week we will be wrapping up with our Parkinson's group, and we will be starting our care partner group on January 13th. And we are hoping to put a big show that incorporates people with Parkinson's and care partners to tell their stories on March 8th at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab.
And the care partners will be going through the same Tell and Tales program with led by Tekki.
Exactly. Yes.
I think it's interesting that people are getting professional coaching and storytelling in a venue that you would least expect it to be on offer, and the benefits of it are absolutely therapeutic in ways that may not be the case for just a regular storyteller, although I'm sure it is that way as well. My sister-in-law is a professional storyteller, and she gets up on stage. So I know that it has a profound effect on her to be able to share her story. But with the Parkinson's group, were there any hesitation with folks to get involved? Was anyone like, I don't know about this?
Yes, definitely. I think Marty can attest to that since Marty was I guess, a vital player in recruitment for our first group that he participated in. I think it was very hard to get people to sign up and be part of some sort of, I guess, creative or artistic program, simply because we see a lot of people trying to get into exercise programs or something else that they may be interested in. So there was some hesitation at the beginning, but Marty was able to persuade or convince some of his friends from a support group to join him.
The recruiting was kind of hard. It was kind of hard, but once they got a couple of the workshop, a couple of the sessions, I think they felt more comfortable. And for that group, Techie, we did have one, I think, one in person down at Shirley Ryan, kind of a dry run, and I think that gave us some confidence in that. You guys can do this, and going through it in person, I think helped at least one time, and at least I know it helped that first initial group because there wasn't a lot of apprehension and uncertainty about, well, what are you asking me to do, and how do I have to do it, and so at the end, it was, I think, highly successful. Obviously, the program continues. I think it'll flourish as being one of the most unique programs that ties in, to me, the psychological mental part allowing you to release, like you said, Sharon, therapeutic feel to it.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being on this episode. This has been fascinating. I'm looking forward to attending the next show myself. So, Eric, make sure you email me about that.
Of course, I will.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
Sharon.
Appreciate the opportunity.
This has been Inside the Outcomes, a rehabilitation research podcast. This podcast is supported by grants from the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. I'm your host, Sharon Parmet, signing off.